So good morning, Anin, welcome, bienvenue, everyone. Thank you for joining our Connecting Climate Change Education to SIPS and the Multi-Year Strategic Plan. Start off with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples. And this piece of art that we have here is done by Luke Parnell, who is an artist of Haida and Niska's heritage, who through the use of traditional techniques from the Northwest Coast investigates contemporary social issues. Neon Reconciliation Explosion is a collaborative installation work. This piece is made of 44 different panels by 55 community members who were asked to reflect on their personal understanding of reconciliation. This work demands a critical engagement with ideas of reconciliation, asking for us to look beyond the surface and into the lived realities of Indigenous people in this place we now call Canada. Like this vivid installation, we will be asking you to consider engaging in collaborative acts of reconciliation as an outcome of this meeting today by connecting climate change education in your school to the school improvement plans and the multi-year strategic plans. According to the final report of the TRC, reconciliation will never occur unless we are all reconciled with the earth. So I want to welcome everyone here who's going to speak today and just let you know that Linda Sue Thomas is a retired TDSB principal. Annie Slater is a principal at Anson Park. Arnold Witt is principal at Don Mills Collegiate. Rebecca Shaheen is a vice principal at Eastview. And Andrea Kwok is vice principal at Withrow Quest. We also have on the call today Richard Christie, the senior manager of the TDSB Sustainability Office, Alicia Roberge, who is our instructional leader for EcoSchools, myself, Jen Vetter, and Chris Metropolis, we are EcoSchool specialists, and Hillary Inwood from OISE. And please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. So our overview for today is we're going to have Richard kick us off by talking about the TDSB Climate Action Report. Alicia will talk about why we're connecting climate change education to the SIPS of the Multi-Year Strategic Plan. We'll have some students present so we can hear from them. And then the principals and vice principals will be connecting climate change education to the SIPS and the Multi-Year Strategic Plan. We'll have some time for discussion and then next steps at the end. So Richard, I'll pass it over to you to get us started.
Okay, super. So good morning, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. I just have a short time with you, so I'm going to jump right in. I want to speak to these four topics, let's say. So you may not know this, just in case you don't know, but the Board of Trustees in 2019, they supported what the City of Toronto did was basically to declare climate change as an emergency. So there was a similar declaration that our Board of Trustees did. And that really kicked off, since then, we've kicked off these annual reports to board on climate action. And they are every year we report to the board, they're very detailed and extensive action plans. So last year's report, we had 53 actions across 10 areas of focus. So it's very significant. And you might not know, but we have a joint labor management environment committee with representation from all four unions that are at TDSB. So the two teachers federations, CUPE, and the Construction and Maintenance Skilled Trades Council. And we also have another advisory committee, we call ESAC, Environmental Sustainability Community Advisory Committee. So obviously by meeting with both of those committees, there's lots of ideas and a lot of input that is provided by those folks that are involved there. Okay, so we're reporting to board annually. We've got lots of action. We're trying to move forward comprehensively across a lot of areas of focus. So I just want to go over some recent highlights. Last year, we did a pilot in the old LC1. And so represents about 25% of our school buildings. And it was not an expensive pilot. It was basically working with caretakers mostly on improving the use of building automation systems, really to reduce the amount of energy that's used when there's no one in the building. So that's at, overnight and on weekends and holidays when no one is there, to really tighten up the energy use, reduce the energy use, and really two big benefits, right? Major financial savings. You can see 1.35 million was saved in that pilot. And the greenhouse gas reductions also were significant there. So just over 2 tons of CO2 were reduced, which is the equivalent to consuming about 1 million liters of gasoline. You may not know, but we are in the process of designing and will soon be constructed our first mass timber school. So this is the replacement school at Poplar Road. This is a rendering. This shows you basically what it's going to look like. And here's just an interior shot of a rendering of what it will look like on the inside. And there's major environmental benefits to a mass timber school, and it's really in embedded carbon, because you're using a lot less steel and a lot less concrete. You're using the mass timber instead, and so the carbon footprint in the construction is far less than a conventional school. And it is as you can see from this picture, it's a very kind of, with all the wood, it's a very kind of warm and inviting environment. Okay, you may not know this, but the last couple years, we worked with caretakers at 5 schools, and we did extensive piloting of battery-operated lawn and garden tools. So it's specifically lawnmowers, string trimmers, leaf blowers, and hedge trimmers. So we went through extensive testing. We worked with caretakers. We worked with our union partners and purchasing. And long and the short of it is that very soon, when we replace any of those pieces of equipment at a school, they will only be battery operated. We will not be supplying any new equipment to caretakers, to schools, that uses fuel. So not only do you get the GHG reduction benefit, but the reality is that the conventional string trimmers, as an example, and lawnmowers, they emit pollutants, particulates that really aren't good for the health of especially the person that's operating the equipment. So there's environmental benefits, there's health benefits to this. So you'll start to see this in your schools. You'll start to see this equipment coming into your schools, which I think is a great thing. Okay, also wanted just to say we have 8 electric maintenance vans they're fully electric that we're using. And I'm confident that this year we'll be procuring more. I think we're looking at least 6 new electric vehicles and some hybrids in addition to that. And just to really drive home the point that, we use our environmental legacy fund to subsidize the premium for the cost of the vehicles. But we're seeing, again, not only the GHG advantage with far fewer emissions from the electric vehicles, but the operating costs, the fuel costs, are just a fraction of what it costs to operate a conventional, gas van. And you may not know that we have 5 electric buses that are serving our schools now. So these aren't TDSB buses; they're owned by the operator, which is how busing is done at the school board. And they're serving the mainland right now, but once we get the charging infrastructure in at the island school, they are going to be serving the island school. So all the kids going to the outdoor ed school there and the day school there will be able to enjoy these fully electric buses. Okay, a little bit hard to read here, but basically in the last 2 years, we've had a large tree program since 2006. And we do it with the city, where they give us not only large trees for free, but they actually also give us money to help pay for the cost of planting them and maintaining them. And they also give us some money for workshops with students in some of these schools that are getting a lot of trees. So those little green, light green, dark green, you can't really see the numbers, but if you could zero in and look at those green circles, basically, it tells you how many trees have been planted at these schools. So that's the other big shift is there's really 2 big things we're doing differently. One is that we're putting a lot of tree planting in all of our site projects, all of our landscaping projects, our playground projects, wherever we see an opportunity, like even on new parking lots, we're putting in trees. So we're including them in all of these projects, and we're also planting, very large numbers of trees at the same school. So Dixon Grove as one example, it was a project we just finished, and there was well over 100 trees planted at that single school. And this is just one example. A recent project, West Humber, 54 trees. There was an old tennis court here that was abandoned, not being used. So this was a project to introduce these new multi-purpose sport courts, basically. There's also a garden back here for special education students to make use of it at the high school. The trees were planted and they're not in leaf when this was taken. This was just taken recently, but basically all these little, you can see the cages and the mulching and the gator bags, but really all through here, all around here, all back there, trees, and even between the two courts there. Anyway, this is what we're trying to do. And even the other thing I wanted to emphasize was it's not just the quantity of trees that we're planting, but it's the attention to detail. So that nothing worse than planting a tree that doesn't do well. So you have to make sure it's planted properly. It's usually about sufficient soil volume. You have to get a lot of soil volume for them to do well. This is Niagara Street, King and Bathurst, very, very challenging site for trees. We integrated a lot of the trees in this new project. The next slide shows you what's underground, which are these, what they call soil cells, which are these plastic structures, basically, that what it does is it provides the trees with a lot of soil volume. And also it doesn't, there's no compaction, if you know what I mean. So when you make this kind of investment, which is not cheap, what it means is that even in those harsh environments, those trees will thrive and do extremely well over time. All right, and my last highlight of this group is our first annual climate camp was held last summer, Monocliffs Outdoor Education School, over the course of a few days. This is an excellent opportunity for our teachers. We did it in collaboration with Hillary and Oisey. It was, I think, a fantastic opportunity. So there'll be another camp coming up this summer, and the intention is to keep doing them annually. All right, so I wanted just to speak briefly about looking ahead. So we're currently writing this year's climate action plan that we'll be taking to the board. And I just wanted to it's going to be massive, right? On our grounds and our buildings and transportation and, education, professional development. Like we'll have actions in all these areas, but just a little taste of a part of where we're going. Yeah, okay. So yeah, this is basically, these are the areas of focus. So we'll have concrete actions in all of these areas. And I wanted to really talk about our greenhouse gas emissions in our school buildings. And to start with the good news that you may not even know this, like we have 148,000 solar panels on our rooftops, right? 358 buildings. It's a very, very significant solar installation which is all grid connected. But that's the good news. The bad news is that when you look, though, at our energy use, our electricity, and especially our natural gas use to heat our buildings, our greenhouse gas emissions are way too high, and our utility costs are way too high. So ranked with other school districts in Ontario, we're toward the bottom on a per square foot basis in terms of energy intensity. We're more than 20% higher than the Ontario average on energy intensity, and we're about 50% higher on greenhouse gas emissions. So that's really where we're really out of whack on is the natural gas we use to heat our buildings in the winter. That's where we're really out of line. But that creates a big opportunity. So, we are consuming more than other school boards, but we're also massive. We're such a massive school board. Based on the pilot I mentioned earlier, one of my first slides today, we're very confident 10% savings is readily achievable. So that would not only give us $5 million in savings per year, but it would also reduce our GHG emissions by 13,000 tons. We think that 20% savings on a per square foot basis, energy or electricity and natural gas, is more challenging, but definitely doable. So again, I mean, the principals and vice principals will know we're under huge financial pressure. That's $10 million a year in savings, but also a huge reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And 45% would basically mean we go from kind of at the bottom of the pack in Ontario with school boards really to the top or the top of the pack. That's what 45%, but you can see massive savings both on greenhouse gas emissions and on utility costs. I put the red box around 20% because in our plan this year, there'll be a concrete plan to get us to 20%, which is what the trustees have asked for. Wrapping up then, maybe to say the obvious for the people that are here, and thank you again for being here. I think this is pretty clear. I think we all know this, right? But there was a survey. It was done a couple of years ago and with Canadian youth, and you won't be surprised to hear that nearly half of the Canadian youth surveyed indicated that they felt humanity is doomed. Okay, so I think that's very clear to anybody that works with young people. Although maybe not so clear to people that don't work with young people and don't have young people in their life. I really wanted to just say, you know, the despair that many of our youth have is, it's not like it's not founded. It's founded. There's a reason for it. They're not kind of making it up. This is information you might not be aware of. This was a report that came out just on Monday. So this is Insurance Board of Canada indicating that in 2024, Canada reached a new record of insured damages through severe weather, right? 8.5 billion. You may not know this, but in August in Calgary, there was a hailstorm. It lasted just over 1 hour and created $3 billion in insured damages. That's like in an hour. It's crazy. That number, the 8.5 billion in insured damage losses in 2024 is 12 times the annual average in the decade between 2002 and 2010. This is not often talked about. The Insurance Bureau of Canada says that there was 24 billion in uninsured damages, no insurance for it. So governments are paying that, businesses are paying that, individuals are paying that. My personal insurance is with Intact. They're a big insurance company in Canada. Insurance Bureau of Canada says that Intact's premiums went up 9% last year. And there's a lot more attention on this in the US, a lot of really good reporting out of the New York Times that is really showing that what you're seeing is you're seeing a lot of people who cannot get insurance in the United States. And I think that's becoming more of an issue in Canada. They simply can't get it. Or it's becoming so expensive that people just don't renew it. They can't afford it. And there are all sorts of implications for high risk areas where you can't get insurance, such as if you want to buy a home, you need a mortgage, you can't get a mortgage because the bank's not going to give you a mortgage if your house is uninsured, right? So, and then of course you have property values decline because people aren't buying the properties, and then the local government is not getting the taxes coming in, and you get a decline in services, etc. So it's really just to wrap up and say, probably obvious to everybody here, this is extremely important. I'm so happy you're here because I would just say that, what's missing in my view, maybe I'm not charitable, what's missing is the adults are not stepping up enough. Right? And especially it's important for us, we work with kids, our whole mission is students. So you're here, you're stepping up. We are trying to do work at the school board level, but a lot more needs to be done by our school board and other school boards to serve the students who we, of course, care so much about. So I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. That was great. I always appreciate hearing your broader perspective of what's happening at the TDSB with regards to climate action. So moving along, I'll introduce you to our instructional leader for Eco Schools, Alicia Roberge.
Thanks, Jen. So today we're here to look at our strategic plans within our schools. And the multi-year strategic plan for 2024 to 28 really wants, the mandate for it is to inspire minds and to shape futures. And as we've heard, the climate crisis and its escalation has really made green jobs pretty much in every single sector that we can see. We need to prepare students for that. And so in this, we have to help with the curiosity, to help with giving them the skill sets, the knowledge, the know-how to be able to do that. So Richard mentioned the anxiety of youth today, and it's easy to see how that can happen with all the headlines occurring, constantly being bombarded by all of these different statistics and climate events. 70% of young people say they are not climate ready based on their education. So this was a quote from the Greening Education or Greening Curriculum from UNESCO, a document which is going to be linked at the end. 47% of national curriculum frameworks of 100 countries made no reference to climate change education. So the goal of this document is to be able to get 90% of national of schools within national over the world to be able to be referring to climate education. In our curriculum today, the students are saying that they want solutions, they want knowledge, they want to know why, and they want to be able to be able to ask their own questions and to be able to get data that might not be there already. Today, we're looking at the where here. So again, this is from the Greening Curriculum Guidance document I was referring to beforehand. So what to learn, how to learn, but where to learn. So in the past, eco schools and climate change education was something that was extra. It was extracurricular. But it is in the classroom. It is being done every single day in math, science, English, geography, tech courses, green industries. There's so many connections in all these different areas. And the most successful projects are always ones that have a team of people within the schools working on them. Often we lose someone in the school and that program is lost as well. So working on techniques and ways in which we can keep these projects sustainable. The escalation of the climate crisis has really made it really urgent that we build these programs and we allow for a lot of space for flexibility and for students to ask their questions and to be able to really kind of find out the data that they need to have the live data to be able to make their own conclusions and own actions, justice actions. These actions also don't have to be all mitigating. They can be adaptive. So, and I think in that place, I think students can find more comfort in their futures and looking at that and looking at the changes that are happening and that are happening at more frequency today with climate crisis. And then finally, just looking at some of the principles of climate change education. So again, action-oriented, feeling like you're doing something about it, feeling like you're going in the right direction. Often, sometimes we go in that direction and we might not be on the right path, knowing when to stop too with that as well. Building that curiosity, building those inquiries in the classroom as well. Justice as well, so making sure culturally relevant, making sure that everyone's getting access to these services. And then quality content, so scientifically accurate, balanced, but also up to date. So looking, for instance, at the wildfires that are happening. We've been hearing a lot about what's been happening in California, but it's also, these fires are also happening in Central Africa and also South America right now. And if we take this into consideration and look at all these different data sets, maybe looking at them in different, using dashboards or using maps and so forth, we can actually see these trends and these things happening a little bit better. And finally, comprehensive and relevant. So making sure that these approaches that we're taking are holistic and also lifelong. They're going to have lifelong strategies for students moving forward in their careers and in their lives. We heard about the solar panels often, solar panels in our schools, the mass timber projects, the electric buses, all of these different actions too. And often sometimes we hear about them, but we don't know the true impact they're having in our lives and in our schools as well. This is also something that could very easily be added into these our SIP goals as well, into our strategic plans within our schools. So moving on, we're going to be hearing from students. So we've got an elementary student and also a secondary student, and this is so important right now that that we listen to what their needs are, and what jobs and what green work they're going to be working on in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate that. So we're going to hear from a grade 8 student at Eastview to start.
Hi, my name is Jordan, and I'm a grade 8 student here at Eastview Public School. Today I wanted to talk about something that affects all of us, climate change. We're already seeing the effects of climate change in the news and in our daily lives, like extreme weather, rising temperatures, and wildfires. Do you remember when we had to stay indoors because of poor air quality? This proves that this isn't just something happening far away. This is happening here in our communities, and it will affect all of our futures. That's why learning about climate change in school is so important. When students understand how our choices impact the planet, we can take steps to make better ones, like reducing waste, walking or biking to limit how much greenhouse gases we use, saving energy at home by turning off the lights after you leave the room, and advocating for a change. Climate change education isn't just about facts and figures, it's about inspiring us to be leaders who can solve problems, work together, and build a sustainable future. Principals play a huge role in this. By supporting climate change education, you're helping students like me understand the challenges we face and how we can help. Imagine if every student left school knowing how to make a positive difference for the environment. That could change everything. Thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting climate change. Together, we can create a better future.
Fabulous. And today we're fortunate to have Kalashri Bias with us. She's a grade 12 student at Etobicoke School of the Arts.
Hi there, everyone, and thank you for your time today. My name is Kalashri Vyas, and I'm a grade 12 student at Etobicoke School of the Arts and the president of the Toronto Youth Environmental Council. The Toronto Youth Environmental Council, founded in 2013, is an entirely high school student-led nonprofit organization, and we are strong advocates for climate education in the TDSB. We believe that adequate and widely accessible environmental education is key for students to feel empowered when it comes to tackling the climate crisis. Up until now, the topics of climate change and other related environmental issues in standard curricula have generally been limited to brief units in introductory science and geography courses, as well as environmental science electives in high schools. However, the fact of the matter is that high school students are now entering a world where climate change will have to be a main consideration for everyone, no matter their future plans. The climate crisis has great relevance to most, if not all, current topics and fields of study due to our ever-changing world and climate conditions. As a student who is incredibly passionate about environmental justice, I believe that there is an environmental lens to everything. We have begun to witness the impacts of climate change every day, and it is my generation of current and future high school students that will especially be affected by climate issues, so it is important that we are equipped with the tools to address them. We have seen a rise in the phenomenon known as eco-anxiety in high school students, and this can be relieved in part by improving environmental education and in turn reducing uncertainty about the future. By introducing an environmental perspective in every classroom, we are not only introducing students to the scientific, social, economic, and cultural impacts of environmental issues, but we are encouraging them to think critically about climate futurism and life beyond the numbers and statistics of what above a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase means by the end of the century. This will also allow us to learn more under the umbrella of environment-related topics and explore Indigenous and multicultural ways of environmentalism in an otherwise Western science-centric stream of environmental education. Every student and teacher is affected by climate change, and by improving environmental education in schools, we are also depoliticizing the issue of climate change and recognizing it as a legitimate and scientifically backed issue that will not go away if we continue to ignore it. Environmental education in schools reduces the burden of students having to self-educate about current and relevant environmental issues, and proper education empowers students to feel like they can make a difference in a crisis that otherwise leaves us feeling powerless. To summarize, climate change education should be a priority in school improvement plans because it is a priority for students and reflects not only what we want to learn, but what we need to learn as we navigate our changing world. Thank you for your continued efforts, including being here to attend this webinar, and I cannot wait to see the changes that are implemented in the future.
Thank you so much, Kalashri. That was so well said, and we really appreciate you being here and having your voice be part of this important webinar today. We're going to hear from our principals. So we're starting off with Linda Sue Thomas, who is a retired TDSB principal, but she has a long history of advocating in her schools for eco schools to become embedded into everything that the school does. So Linda Sue, please take it away.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here today, and I'd like to speak a little bit about the role of engagement in meeting the goals in your climate change education programs and making those solid connections to your SIP and the MYSP values. So why is engagement important? What does it look like? And how do you achieve it? Why is it important? We all know the many ways your school improvement plan is connected to your climate change education goals and the TDSB multi-year strategic plan. And sometimes on paper, those look very clear. But at the school level, how do we implement our climate change education program to ensure those goals are met in our schools and those solid connections are made? In my experience, I have realized that the key to a successful ECO and CCE program is engagement. So what does engagement look like? It looks like what we are seeing here, a learning environment that is inclusive and equitable, where all students belong, are actively engaged and valued. And here we see students working together in the garden and a learning activity that includes staff and students of all levels and language. We always found that our English language learners, for instance, really thrived and gained so much more confidence during this active learning project. This is when I knew that staff and students had developed a real engagement and commitment to our CCE goals. On a Friday morning, 3 yards of topsoil was delivered to our new garden, and we knew it wouldn't be there Monday, so several classes took the initiative to start a bucket brigade, led by our caretaker, to move topsoil into our courtyard garden, and soon the entire school wanted to take part. It was truly an amazing moment, and thereafter this was referred to as the moving of Mount Ernest. Okay, parents, they're such an important factor in actually engaging our partner in partnership in achieving our eco goals. And this shows parents supporting students and staff for Walk a Child to School Day. So as a principal, it's so important to encourage and nurture leadership in your staff. And an effective way to do this, I found, was to demonstrate your own leadership and model your own commitment. I chose to lead the monarch butterfly raising, tagging, and release school-wide project at my school. And here we see our tagged monarchs being released while we all sang farewell to them, to bid goodbye. True school engagement involves many initiatives from all roles in the school. And it's very important that those are communicated visually so that that communication reaches all the stakeholders involved. And here we see some examples of how we communicated our progress in achieving our school-wide goals. We were particularly proud of the fact that our school reached an almost zero level of non-reusable containers. Our parent community was incredibly supportive in buying into this. This slide and the next one show our courtyard garden and our outdoor classroom in full use. And yes, you can make a real difference. Climate change education supports the TDSB multi-year strategic plan by building environmental knowledge, providing cross-curricular learning opportunities, building critical thinking skills, and promoting civic responsibility and focus on equity, nurturing personal growth and leadership in both staff and students, and importantly, ensuring inclusive learning opportunities for all students. So an important component of leadership is also building relationships beyond the school for both principal and teachers. This will provide and encourage more opportunities for sharing and discovery. And in summary, some final thoughts. Always be a strong advocate for climate change learning. Ground your environmental initiatives in the curriculum and the guiding principles of the TDSB multi-year strategic plan. Always model the joy of teaching and passion for the environment. Take your own leadership to the next level and encourage teacher leadership. And please provide time for principal and staff planning and brainstorming sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda Sue. Now we're going to move on to Principal Annie Slater, Anson Park, and Rebecca Shaheen, Vice Principal, will follow Annie.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. It was we're really happy to have you all here and to see that we're building capacity and the partnerships. And I'm really honored to be presenting after Linda Sue because she was my mentor. And when I was going through the promotion process, which I attribute to Richard Christie for bringing me into this role, is to also, because if we are not supporting our staff, it's really hard for any of this to happen. And as Rebecca, who's going after me, and I can both attest, we were those lone teachers in a school that were working hard to, do our eco school portfolio and binder and the initiatives with maybe a group of students that were doing the eco club. But we want to go beyond that. We want to bring it right into our school improvement plan. We want to make it a school-wide, something that's embedded through the entire your entire program and your school improvement plan, and it will definitely meet many of the goals of the multi-year strategic plan. The one thing that we've done, bringing in the Indigenous education, so that is definitely one of our mandates that should be, year-round, and so bringing in, and a lot of that works very well, and it just speaks to, integrating the climate change education perspectives. It promotes outdoor education that respects and learns, things that you can learn and respect from the land. Lots of goals of equity and inclusion and stewardship are in there. Belonging, that's another, tenets of our multi-year strategic plans and our school improvements. We want to have those initiatives where we include everybody. It's not just for the eco club. It's not just for the 2 or 3 teachers that maybe are promoting. So for example, our entire school did Earth Day play day, and we had Earth Week with many different initiatives, and lots of where the whole school was involved. Every Wednesday we had walk to school day, and we would have our staff go out and they'd be wearing their vest, and the kids would just come from all the different buildings and join in, and it was just it was a lot of the sense of belonging that we were as one. We had made this beautiful quilt using recycled fabric that was actually going to be disposed of by a company. And we were able to cut out squares, and students made images that were about environmental stewardship. And then they were weaved together to make this beautiful quilt that we had prominently, put up in the school. So different things that you can do within the school throughout the entire year that will show those inclusive practices and the cultural relevance behind it, because you're also bringing in different cultural and diverse approaches. I mean, achievement is always definitely, we want to, touch upon make sure that all our students by the end of the school year have reached their curriculum expectations. But by bringing in, climate change education, it provides opportunities for all students to learn about, for, and from the environment. And it ties in very well, as Alicia had mentioned, in all the subject areas. And the curriculum has been updated where you can find connections to all the subject areas and then integrate those goals into inquiry and projects throughout the school and make it a school-wide initiative. Revitalizing, that's a big one with our eco schools and with climate change education. So revitalizing, as Richard had mentioned, some schools in the school grounds, and you can start small. You can start by, planting a garden, having different grades research the native plants and pollinators, and what zone you're in, planting zone, what's the best time to germinate the seeds, when it's the best time. So all that and can be integrated with math and sciences. And the kids see the difference. They see the before and after, and it's just so amazing to see how they become engaged and included in everything. You incorporate also social justice can also be part of that as well. So, but it's just seeing the changes, and the kids are just so involved and so interested in being part of that change. It is a very, very amazing experience. Community partnerships, one of the best things that we had done at when I was at Wilburn Junior, which was just until last June, is that we took a piece of land by Wilburn CI that was just grass, and in partnership with us as the elementary school, the high school, and also the Catholic school next door and community members, we were able to put together a beautiful food garden that was tended to through the summer by community members. And we actually had great harvest and a celebration where we shared the harvest with community members. And this is a model school, inner city area, where this was definitely well received by many. And it was just amazing to see the partnerships included there. I mean, definitely things like thriving, making sure and promoting outdoor activities and different things where they're studying about the trees, they're studying those interdisciplinary skills. And of course, things like Take Me Outside Day, where your entire school can participate in. We did a lot of indoor gardening. We reached out to CCEL, somebody say the community, the grant. I'm trying to remember right now what the grant stands for, but we used a lot of our grant money to work on indoor and outdoor revitalizing. So we had indoor growing towers, and we had students from kindergarten to grade 6, including kids from our special needs classrooms involved in every step. And a lot of the plants that we germinated inside were also then, when the weather was ready, we would put them outdoors. We also did maple tree tapping, which tied in very well with our Indigenous learning goals. And again, from K to 6, everybody was involved. All the students were involved in the whole process. And of course, how it integrated with the subject areas and in the different grades. So there was a lot of measuring, a lot of looking at volume and looking at yield versus, what the SAP was. So that we collected. So it was a really great project, and every student got to be part of it and got to taste the maple syrup made on our school grounds. So it was amazing. And I brought that program this year to our school at Anson Park, where I am right now. So we're looking forward to start that next month. We're tapping as of February 5th. And things like that you could do, like conducting waste audits, where you're talking about measurement. You could talk about the before and after. Math is involved, all kinds of things that you can bring in. And so this is, again, year round. You could do comparisons. You can measure how well did we do, from different months. So all these different things. And again, I think the big thing here is, and mirroring what Linda Sue said, is give them the time, give the teachers the time to plan, give them the coverage. Don't ask them to do this as a one-off, because they will burn out. So we want to make sure that we embed it. And if it's in our school improvement plan, it is part of everybody's job and everybody is engaged. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm honored to represent Eastview as a vice principal and share some of the great work that's been happening here at Eastview. Eastview is an Indigenous focused school, and I'm thrilled to share that we've been gold certified as of last year. This remarkable achievement reflects the collaborative efforts of our students, staff, and families, and the broader community. Eco Schools is climate change education. The program fosters a deep sense of belonging at Eastview because it truly takes a collaborative effort to reach this milestone. As an eco school, we value climate change education. Today, I'm excited to showcase some of the impactful projects Eastview has undertaken in recent years to promote environmental stewardship and community engagement. At Eastview, outdoor education is part of our Rotary schedule for students in grades 5 to 8. Once every 5-day cycle, students dedicate an afternoon to experiential learning projects, such as cultivating our new food garden. Last spring, students built 6 raised garden beds. These types of hands-on experiences teach students about the environment in practical, meaningful ways. Growing your own food helps students see where food comes from, and hopefully they learn not to waste food and to make healthier food choices. As administrators, I encourage you to prioritize opportunities for land-based learning when staffing and scheduling. Schedule outdoor learning opportunities into the timetable to support with support from an environmental lead teacher to connect students with the natural world and explore the impacts of climate change. Creating opportunities for hands-on learning and engagement is vital. At Eastview, our outdoor education educator, Michael Schramm, integrates climate change education into his programming. This engaging approach ensures that all students achieve high levels of success, personal growth, and environmental awareness. In these photos, you'll see the raised garden beds that were built last spring. Our students thrive as they plan, organize, build, problem solve, and gain confidence. They take immense pride in contributing to meaningful school projects, which fosters both their personal development and a sense of ownership in our community. 2 years ago, staff and students installed a pollinator garden at the front of our school. When I first arrived at Eastview as a new VP here, the sight of the vibrant pollinator garden filled me with excitement. As I approached the building, I knew I was joining a team of staff and students deeply committed to environmental care. Projects like these revitalize the school, inspiring pride and connection. Our next major initiative plan aligns with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action. We're planning to plant 600 trees to reclaim some of the land and create a healing space here at Eastview. You'll see in the picture the yellow arrow that's pointing to a green rectangle. That's the part of the land that we're planning to plant on. As administrators, I urge you to support such projects by applying for grants or allocating time for staff to seek funding opportunities. These efforts are crucial for meaningful large-scale initiatives. On the next slide, you'll see community events such as Earth Day cleanups are another way to engage our students and families. One of my responsibilities as the VP here at Eastview is our school nutrition program. As part of the Earth Day event, I saved all the bread bags that we have, and we repurposed the bread bags so that students could use one as a glove and the other as a bag for collecting the litter that they picked up. These small creative steps help build awareness while fostering a spirit of teamwork. Field trips are invaluable for teaching students about the environment. At Eastview, we've prioritized outdoor education through activities such as habitat studies at the local creek and land-based learning outdoors with our outdoor educator, Michael Schramm, as well as our Indigenous knowledge sharing with our traditions and cultures teacher, Naz Bell. These experiences enrich the curriculum, deepen students' appreciation for the environment, and foster cultural awareness, hallmarks of student well-being. When I arrived at Eastview, they were not composting here, and 2 years ago, we implemented a school-wide composting program. This initiative not only reduces the waste that we put out into the landfill, but also teaches students about the importance of diverting organic materials from landfills and thus reducing our greenhouse gases. The picture you're seeing is the collection of the bins, so it's part of our nutrition program. The compost bins go out with the snack bins and come back with the snack bins, so that students are involved in helping with the collection. I'll leave you with a few more pieces of advice. Encourage staff to incorporate climate change education into their program to enhance student understanding and engagement with this critical global issue. Remind students that small actions have a big impact. Allocate some of your budget to resources to purchase materials or programs that support climate change education. Encourage staff to attend professional development, such as the climate camp last summer. Dedicate time during staff meetings to share ideas and discuss strategies for raising awareness and promoting action. Ensure time is set aside for staff to complete any required documentation and reporting for EcoSchools initiative. Finally, celebrate and recognize teachers and students who actively advocate for climate change education, fostering school-wide culture of environmental responsibility and empowerment to make meaningful action. By emphasizing hands-on learning, community involvement, and environmental stewardship, we're equipping students with the tools they need to thrive academically, socially, and personally. Together, let's continue fostering sustainable practices in our school communities. It aligns so well with the goals of truth and reconciliation, belonging, achieving, thriving, and reviving. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you, Annie, both of you for your great leadership. Really appreciate it, and I know your students do as well. Now we'll have Andrea Kwok, Vice Principal at Withrow Quest.
Hi there. My sort of presentation ties in a lot of the themes from the previous speakers, and just to build on that idea about how we need to care for the earth because we are actually borrowing it from our children. So my presentation is to speak about engaging your school community in outdoor learning spaces. We have a lot of parents that want to volunteer and support within our school, and the community gardens is one way that we have really engaged the parents in a lot of ways, from applying to grants to doing a lot of the manual labor, sometimes even coming in and co-teaching with the teachers to learn about the different components of the different gardens that we have. So I sort of broke this down into the different pieces of our outdoor spaces that teach about climate change and environmental education. We have an outdoor outdoor classroom that has a large chalkboard and then long benches for students to sit for instruction and discussion. But it's also a piece of our schoolyard that the students are allowed to use during recess times. And that's very meaningful. I've seen the kids doing a lot of natural discovery and reviewing lessons that they learned with their teachers outside. We have a pollinator garden. This one is just sort of outside of our fenced-in area, and that space grows plants and flowers that attract various pollinators for student observation. We have an edible garden that has raised beds where the children can taste the plants that are grown. Not something that has been harvested per se, but the kids know that everything in that garden space is edible, and they know that it has to be treated in a different way, and that's why it looks different from, say, our pollinator garden. The third garden we have, the students call it the Indigenous Garden, and it's a space that grows plants of importance to the Indigenous communities. And there's a lot of like signs around it on the fences that have been student made on how they're allowed to go in there, but how to interact in the space in a respectful way. And then finally, we also have a composting station where we can put our, mostly it's garden waste, it's not food waste. But so it's where like the clippings go or weeds go. And that's away from any of the garden spaces. And the students can observe that like the decay is part of the life cycle of our garden. And so here's some pictures. I just took them yesterday actually, and it just shows that the garden spaces, even at this time of year, are still beautiful spaces for the kids to visit, and they're accessible. And that's just a picture of our outdoor classroom, and as you can see, it's like between the basketball courts and our field. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate that. And now we have Arnold Witt from Don Mills Collegiate Institute to do a presentation as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jen. First of all, thank you to everyone who have presented. It's been amazing listening to everybody here, and I don't want to repeat a lot of information, but I'm going to acknowledge everyone is aligning to the multi-year strategic plan. So I won't get into how mine does as well, but absolutely belong, achieve, revitalize, and thrive. All in there, fantastic. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how to sustain this program as a formula. As an administrator coming into a school, how do you make this and how do you sustain it so that when you walk away as part of the fabric of the whole school? I've been a passionate educator on this for about 30 years. And as 20 years as an administrator, that has always been my stance. And the rule number one is if the principal does not believe in this, it's not going to happen. So that has to be the inspiration, but having your stance, your staff knows absolutely you believe in this, and it's about relationships and partnerships. Now, what I've learned the most in my school at Don Mills, I've been here 4 years here, is what's unique about this program is the interdisciplinary teaching here between two teachers, which has expanded to a bunch of teachers at the school. So it's not just one teacher that's running this, but you'll have someone who's in experiential learning, who takes his practices that are very authentic and aligns it with someone who's in history and social sciences with our curriculum and challenging the curriculum so that the expectations are still met, but through authentic learning practices. So I'm going to highlight through these slides right now. Dan and Ben, Dan Kananek and Ben Gross are two teachers of my school. I'm very honored that they have won the Governor General's Award actually for their excellence in teaching, all over TDSB, but it's more than just that. Again, it's about empowering the students, and that's what their philosophy is. So building bridges, cultivating understanding. I made this presentation on their presentation, which they performed to all the staff. And the whole purpose of this slide, I'm gonna go through the 8 slides for what they've done here, is that it's been very inclusive with the staff. So all the staff are part of this process. So the first thing is fostering Indigenous relationships. Coming from our curriculum, Ben Gross is very passionate about his his curriculum in teaching Black history, teaching genocide, and throughout all the social science courses and our NBE courses. That's a grade 11 course now for Indigenous Excellence. Our school improvement plan, that's one of our foci, moving all the English into that area, which he's been successful for. Dan, who was very inspired by the 60s Scoop, that's where we got a lot of his education from, going through various professional developments. They both explored grant writing, student perspectives to try to empower students. And the collaboration with Indigenous folks has been around this area. So in alignment with the UIEC, we've been working with a lot of the folks here, and Theodore Fontaine was one of the individuals that helped us with hands-on learning to create one of the projects on here on the far right. It was the stone tiles and turtle sculpture, which he was very, very fond of. Unfortunately, Theodore passed away a few years ago, but the students are still have this memento for him, and it's in our school. So when someone walks into your building, it's the environment is the third teacher. They see that this is our focus. This is what our priorities is. So next thing they spoke about was our Haudenosaunee Mountain reconciliation. When I arrived here 4 years ago, that's the first thing they did was they took me around the property. All the land on our property is utilized for urban development, urban farming, and one of the proudest areas they have here is the Haudenosaunee Garden, where they created this about 10 years ago. And back at that time, it was illegal to produce these gardens because of our Canadian government. And they are pioneers on this, where they had to bring in, again, our local Indigenous leaders. And it was amazing how they built this, because there's nothing written on this. As you know, throughout the internet, you can't find this information. And even the Indigenous leaders had to talk to their elders, because it's all done through storytelling, to create this. This garden produces crops at a rate of 15 times more effectively than regular gardens, and all the crops that are like the Three Sisters, which are cultivated, everything that we produce on here is partnered up to give to restaurants, to fine dining restaurants downtown, like George's Restaurant, very highlighted. And most recently, we're working with Shops on Don Mills. So all the restaurants of Shops on Don Mills, we're building an urban garden at the top of one of the centers there. And every single restaurant owner and chef is going to be utilizing those crops produced for their restaurants. So regenerative farming techniques and food sovereignty, very focused on Indigenous leadership for this. Again, challenging the curriculum and reclaiming identity. For example, some of the things, so do we need to talk about things like the Battle of the Bulge in history class, or let's look at the Yoka crisis? And this is where Ben Gross came in with all his focus on social justice, anti-Black racism, of course, reclaiming identity. And Ron Finley, if you haven't had a chance, and I hope this will be shared with everyone, that's the link to Ron Finley, who has a TED Talk and focuses on sustainable gardens in urban areas like Los Angeles. And it's an incredible TED Talk, because he looks at the areas that have been marginalized and impoverished, and the answers to reclaiming this land and to get the families focused is through the gardening techniques. And it's an incredible story. And I love his comments. Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Let the soil be your canvas. The award that they won for the Governor General's Award was Ben partnered up with one of our past survivors of World War II in the internment camps, right, for the Jewish internment camps, and is an incredible story. So he connected with this person, the Holocaust survivor stories. His name was Pinchas Gutter, and Pinchas Gutter spoke to our students and explained to them that he got through this whole episode of the Holocaust with a sense of food, connecting it through the culture, and recognizing that to maintain their dignity, to maintain their personality, everything, their humanity was through the love of food. And to that end, the students worked together to create the food, and with our own gardens, grow the food and eat the food. And he would tell the stories. And as all the classes got together, we learned from their stories and reflected on this. And many of our own students reflected on their own backgrounds and how the culture of food, how it changes them, how much they value on this. So we've created a lasting legacy on this. And of course, we've reached out. Thank you, Richard Christie. He's been one of our biggest supporters, of course, for things like our outdoor kitchen and how we create the food. And now we have an indoor kitchen as well that's been created, so the kids are fully involved, both not just, let's say, in the green industries, but all around through. And I'm going to mention as well too, we have reached out to all our feeder schools. We've had about 20 different field trips where schools come into the school and they see it, and our students themselves will take them through tours and explain how it all works, right? And then when they leave here, we found them also to be more empowered, not trying to duplicate our program, but trying to replicate it in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so key takeaways. Interdisciplinary teaching, it does foster deep understanding. That's how it creates sustainability. There's two other teachers that I like to highlight. Margaret DeJesus, who runs our Eco Schools Club, who's directly involved with all these processes as well. And even in our specialized program is cyber arts, Blake McAllister and I'll say Andrew Simpson as well, where the students go into the green industries and they create all their art projects. Those graduate students, we have one who's working at Pixar, he's making movies. Other students who are painting the Metrolinx buses. All right, but this is the type of interdisciplinary work that's happening between students. Challenging the traditional curriculum can lead to more meaningful learning. Food can be a powerful tool for connection and healing, as we learned from Pincast. And of course, student-centered learning empowers young people to become active citizens. For the remainder, very quickly, I'm just going to go over some of our beautiful pictures. A lot of you had some awesome pictures. Just to get a sense, this is a picture. Yes, every year a mother goose comes and has baby little goslings, and that's in an area that has been created on our property too. This is the back where we have our actual outdoor gardens. And if you look in the far towards the end of it, that's where our oven is actually located. Okay. Again, that's the front of our school. And somebody mentioned as well too about tapping the maple syrup. We do this as well. And 2 years ago, Dan took all our senior staff, all the superintendents to walk around the school. It's supposed to be a 10-minute tour, became an hour and a half. Perfect. You need to understand this stuff and how important it is. Again, same thing in front of the school. Okay. And this is near the back of the school. And one of the individuals that is a partner with us is Isaac Crosby of University of Toronto, who is Black and Indigenous, comes from Windsor, and his ancestors stem all the way back from the Underground Railroad with Indigenous leaders in Windsor. And he comes here directly from U of T to help our students. He started creating potato gardens, helps the Three Sisters. He's looking at creating a multicultural garden. That's our next focus with Isaac Crosby. Utilize land again. This is part of the potatoes. So they dig on the right-hand side, bearing some of the crops. They love these. Potatoes are amazing. Okay. Again, commitment even during some attendance celebrations of other school events. So even though our students are involved in so many things, they're still focused on themselves. There's never any shortage of students offering their help for what needs to be done to be sustained. Okay. Again, this is the side of the school, or we're growing all the grapes and the students are getting everything ready. Tapping the maple syrup. Okay. And again, some of the crops, some of the ideas, and jarring. Here we have some of the pickles that we've been doing, and that was the old kitchen where the students all worked together. Now that kitchen has been revitalized, and again, all part of the multi-year strategic plan. Okay, there's the oven, amazing. Next, I think you're going to see some of the products of the oven. The next, the pizzas that we make from some of the food that's growing directly in the garden. A couple of years ago too, we had the whole Eco Schools group come over here, so we had about 130 people here. Remember the Jen? It was awesome. And oh my gosh, the food is incredible. Again, more of the crops. More of the crops. Three Sisters from Dorothy from our Haudenosaunee garden. Okay, same thing. Okay, and there's some of the grapes, some of the crops that grow. So in the spring, you can see this is when they're preparing it. Again, the fall, this is when we get the grapes. Okay, it's more of the crops again. This is right from our Haudenosaunee garden. Yeah. Okay, and some of our student engagement here. So the wood directly off the land. So Dan's incredible. Everything that we take is from TDSB, and they built all the tables, they built all the benches, they built whatever it takes inside the shop itself. As you can see from the smiles, the faces, these kids are so focused. Many of our students have even changed directions and pathways because of this program. Okay? Again, appreciating to the land. So some students are studying, they're doing drawings. This is the stream, the pond that we built again. So it's very relaxing, of course, for well-being. Okay, and even things outside. The students didn't want to have the last year they bought the screen. They didn't want to have inside. They want to utilize the land, even though this is just on the pavement. They appreciate the fact, right, that they can be outside, and the students all love this. So I love it that they're all fully engaged and they want to maintain this and come up with their own ideas in it. And of course, as a principal, I love it. Okay, and staff. So staff learning about the SIP and Indigenous excellence. I took them all to the Japanese Cultural Center 2 years ago. We went through this in depth so that everyone is part of this. And you can see the joy on here. Lots of learning going on. Okay, and here we have staff learning about Indigenous excellence. This is one of our students, her Indigenous voice, doing smudging as well with the entire staff. Okay, same thing. Okay, and then this is another smudging exercise where I had the educators come, top educators from Scotland, from England, from Wales, and there's another country that came, Ireland, that's it. And they all learned the smudging exercise directly from our students. Okay, and last one, cohesive staff appreciation. All right, coming outside. Ben's on the far left, all right, and everyone's all part of this action. So they all, it's something that we stop for the school. We recognize and affirm. Okay, and that's it for me. And I just want to say, if there's any questions and anyone wants to reach out, please do. I love what I've heard. I'm definitely going to reach out to some of these administrators about doing some cool partnerships because I can see a lot of cool things happen. I'm very pleased to see this all. Thank you for having me here.
Well, thank you so much. I'm always inspired when I get the chance to go to Don Mills. It's amazing what your team is doing. Thank you, everyone, for the incredible presentations, and we'll hear from Hillary now and get some questions going. Thank you.
I will say that Don Mills Collegiate is such an amazing place to take students that we actually took 4 classes of our student teachers at OISE to go and see the site, actually, because we want them to be aware of this kind of learning of climate change education right from the time that they begin their teaching careers. So thank you so much, Arnie. That's amazing. Thank you to all of our principals and VPs today. The work that you're doing with your teachers, with your students, with your parents in your schools is so impressive. We are trying our best to support that work. We have a professional learning collaboration that happens between the TDSB and OISE. We see this as a series of opportunities to provide professional learning to teachers, to system leaders, as well as to parents. We've had parents involved in some of these as well, and we really are very open to welcoming anybody who'd like to join us to increase their knowledge of climate change education. I'm not going to go through each of these, and thanks, Richard, for the shout out to Climate Camp, which was really very well received last year. It was really a fantastic event, and we'll make sure that you get information about Climate Camp as registration opens again this year for it. But just know that there are many, many opportunities to engage your teachers in professional learning, and some of them come with release days as teachers get a little bit farther into the darker green kind of learning, and we're happy to support at any time. So just ask how we can help, how we can support you. We just wanted to hear from you at this point. We wanted to hear, first of all, what kinds of initiatives you might be doing in your school. We know we've got some other principal champions in the room who could have easily been contributing as part of this too. So we'd love to hear if you want to feel comfortable popping on your mic to hear about what you're doing in your school to help connect climate change education to the SIPS and to the strategic plan. And we're also interested in what kind of supports you might need to do this work as well. So please feel free again just to pop either your digital hand up and or you can just wave your regular hand if your camera's on. We'd really be delighted to hear from you.
Thank you. Sorry. One thing I just want to also mention is caretaking. All right, when you're doing this work, all right, the relationships with caretaking, that's so vital as well. So I'm very fortunate. Our caretaker is involved in this, even when the teachers aren't there for protection. I saw one of the comments, how you keep all the raccoons, all the animals. So the caretakers are part of all this. They actually watch and they help supervise and let us know. We do get some things stolen. I'm thinking, well, they really wanted it. It's, it happens, right? We're actually getting extra cameras on because some of the things that we're growing are unique from Europe. We had all these Italian melons that were really expensive, and most of them got taken, but we kept some of them so they could go to the fine dining restaurants. But the caretakers, I wanted to make that point.
Your cameras are going to eventually pick up a short VP scuttling through the crates. So just ignore that, okay?
No problem.
We should give a shout out to some of the schools too that have had collaborations with Food Share, which is a local NGO in recent years. We went last year, or a year and a half ago, to Burnhamthorpe Collegiate as one of the sort of special celebratory events at the end of the year, and took over 100 TDSB teachers and administrators to Burnhamthorpe Collegiate for an afternoon celebration. And it was an amazing event to see what they're doing with Food Share at that particular site. It was really, really impressive. So, there are organizations to help support these kind of endeavors. It doesn't have to be entirely on the teaching staff and the administrative staff to do them. Any other principals or VPs want to share what they're doing at their school? We'd love to hear from you.
If I could add that for this webinar, the invitation went out to all VPs and principals that are already doing work in their schools. So I just wanted to let you know that that is happening, and I'm hoping to survey all of that. Actually, at the beginning of the slide deck was a survey just to see what work you're doing in your schools and to also kind of connect you with some of the your school community. So maybe you can do something with your feeder school or vice versa, and kind of build upon what's going on there.
And Alicia, we'll make sure we send out the link to that survey in the follow-up resources that we'll send everybody and the recording of this too. So if you want to share the recording of this webinar with other members of your staff, you absolutely are welcome to do so. That'll be ready in the next week.
Absolutely. And just to know, we know, and thank you very much for coming during this busy time, because I know the schools right now with exams and with report cards and like that are very busy.
I just
jump in.
I added in the chat that CCEL, it stands for Community Connected Experiential Learning Grant, and that is a TDSB initiative. And so when we filled it out this year, we were able to get $10,000 to go towards our maple tree tapping and maple syrup making, and as well the making a food and pollinator garden. And this is within the TDSB. So that is something, if anybody has any questions, I'm sure that there's a few of us, Arnie, Rebecca, and I'm sure the Eco Schools team, if you want to, it was actually rather, I wouldn't say easy. There is an application process, but it definitely helps support, and it includes coverage for your teachers that are part of the initiative.
I think what we'll do is include in the resource list a couple of different sources for grants related to climate change education, because they are becoming increasingly easier to get as more organizations offer them. Learning for Sustainable Future, the TDSB has a wonderful partnership with the City of Toronto to offer climate action grants that are led by students. So there are many opportunities these days for schools to tap into money that's being offered to support this work.
I would like to share that I did apply for that climate action grant last year, and I did receive $1,000, which I used to buy IKEA reusable dishes for our nutrition program. So in our nutrition program, we're pretty much litterless. We're not using anything that needs to go into the landfill whatsoever.
And Rebecca, as the leader in your school, your food program, I know that you've done such amazing work in helping to take the food waste to your chickens, but also reducing the amount of waste that's created as part of the program too. So thanks for your leadership in that regard.
I will offer this advice too: when you're working on grant applications, do make sure you check with Eco Schools, because you do need a letter to say that you have permission to do these things on the land. So I've recently applied to TD Friends of the Environment, and I can't remember the other one, but you do need a letter to state that you have permission to plant 600 trees on the school property before they'll even consider your grant application.
Very good advice. And I'll also just throw out to everyone that Alicia, Chris, and I, as TDSB staff, are available to come to your schools and support you and your teachers in any way that we can.
Well, I think with that, we've got the results from the survey. I don't think will be easily accessible, because I don't think people had time at the beginning, Alicia, to
we got about 10 responses, so I was a bit surprised by that, but
that's great.
I will share it all later on. It'll have a map of all the different schools that attended today. It'll also have some of the sub goals that they have within their schools, and then maybe that makes your work a little bit easier, lighter load, so you can see what's already being done and not having to reinvent the wheel. We're doing so Eco Schools is also doing a PD coming up too for teachers on February 14th, and also I just hopefully we were able to support you today. And again, I just want to really say thank you for your time. I know how precious this time today is for a lot of you. You have a quiet day to do the work in the PD. So thank you very much for attending. Please also, if you haven't already, maybe subscribe to the Eco Schools newsletter. All the information about upcoming events with CCE, TDSB, but also OISE events as well will all be listed in the newsletter every single month. And I think that's it. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.